Hello and welcome back to Everything Boats with Captain Frank Lanier, where we discuss boats and boating, from maintenance and repairs to seamanship and safety, as well as everything in between. This podcast is a companion to my YouTube channel of the same name, so if you like and find it useful, be sure to subscribe and please check out my YouTube channel as well, where you'll find hundreds of informative videos on pretty much every boating topic imaginable. Today we're going to be discussing equipment waterproof ratings, what they mean, what they don't mean, as well as how to interpret, decipher, and apply them to the real world environment. As a sailor, I'd love to be able to claim the first time I really worried about the waterproof rating of my boat's electronics was while doubling the horn or some other such salty endeavor. Instead, it occurred during the Pearl Harbor dinghy wars of '93, when my dock neighbor Phil tacked through a steady barrage of water balloons and curses to lob a watery grenade into the cockpit of my boat and squarely on top of my new handheld VHF radio. Shrieking like a little girl, I grabbed it and wiped it down and consulted the owner's manual in efforts to determine its chances of surviving a direct water bomb hit without the protective little clear plastic booty that came with it. Unfortunately, my lack of knowledge concerning how to interpret these standards rendered them pretty much useless. It's easy to see where the bafflement begins when you're trying to figure out just how waterproof a piece of gear really is. You would think, simply look at the equipment specification sheet. Somewhere, variously recorded under environmental or possibly case, will be ratings like IPX5, JIS6, IP45, or even maybe some vague references to U.S. Coast Guard CFR 46. Sound puzzling? Well, stand by for heavy rolls as the confusion continues, even with terms we think we might understand, like waterproof. My ideal waterproof might be a VHF handheld that can emerge unscathed after being dropped in 10 foot of water for an hour or so, the time it typically takes me to dig out my dive gear and go find it. The manufacturer, on the other hand, may view waterproof as something that can survive a dunking in a dinghy's bilge for a few seconds, or maybe just the operator's sweaty fingers. Waterproof, submersible, splash-proof, drip-resistant, watertight. These are all ambiguous terms and worthless unless used with some regard to a recognized standard. There are numerous quantifiable standards a manufacturer can reference to accurately rate how environmentally sealed their products are. However, even these carry their own brand of particular customer confusion. Not all are universally known or accepted, such as when a manufacturer has its own testing procedures, and even those that are differ in varying degrees to requirements a piece of gear must meet to earn a specific rating. For example, a manufacturer stating their equipment can tolerate submersion in 2 foot of water for an hour provides an excellent visual representation of what it can take. Such individually developed evaluations make it easier to compare laboratory tests to real world conditions. However, the lack of a master standard still places the burden of determining how these and even the more recognized ratings compare with each other, and that burden rests squarely on the consumer. Is IPX5 better than JIS6? And how do both compare to IEC 529? Here's a rundown on the ones you're most likely to encounter and what information they do and don't provide. What does an IPX rating mean? IP stands for ingress protection. IPX rating is the marking that denotes the level of protection primarily against water and dust. The numbers following the IP rating indicates the degree of protection. For example, equipment rated at an IPX4 would be protected against splashing water, while those rated at an IPX7 would remain waterproof in water up to 3 feet. The JIS scale is another one you may encounter. JIS stands for the Japan Industrial Standards, and it's a rating designed to define the level of waterproofness built into VHF radios. The JIS standard utilizes a 0 to 8 scale to rate water ingress protection. In other words, a rating of JIS5 means the radio remains protected when exposed to direct jetting water from any direction. A higher rating of JIS8 means the radio is immersion resistant and remains waterproof when submerged in water to a specific depth. IEC 529 is another one you may see. IEC 529 of the European Community specifications is similar to the JIS in terms of graduated test scales. However, the IEC tests used to determine equipment ratings are more defined. IEC standards use a two-digit IP ingress protection code to numerically rate electrical gear based on the level of protection provided by the case or enclosure. The first number provides the protection against solids such as dust, while the second number provides the level of protection against water. In the code IP45, for example, the 4 describes protection against solids up to 1 millimeter, while the 5 describes protection against low pressure jets of water from all directions. A number 7 here would indicate the unit remains waterproof when submerged up to 1 meter. So here's another thing you got to look out for when you're looking at IP ratings and waterproof ratings and all that stuff. Some manufacturers may increase their warranty periods and include repair of water damaged equipment in efforts to make their products appear more waterproof and therefore competitive. In many cases, the waterproof qualities of the equipment remain the same, with only the warranty having changed, which may suggest to the consumer that the unit is more waterproof than it actually is. Although a straight up marketing ploy, this tactic at least gives the buyer protection in the form of a more comprehensive warranty. This is a good thing overall. However, bear in mind that the cost of replacing these damaged units is incorporated in a higher purchase price, and it may generate additional frustrations in the form of more returns for repair and having to do without the items while they're being repaired. In my experience, when it comes to waterproof integrity, you typically get what you pay for. Good design and construction materials are expensive, so you should expect to pay for that. When I look at a piece of equipment for purchase, I'll look at the quality of the construction and pay attention to the details, particularly with regards to things like switches and charging or accessory plugs and inlets. Are they well designed and robustly constructed? Do they look waterproof? I mean, no matter how it's rated, if it doesn't look like it's waterproof, it's not going to be waterproof. The unit may be fine depending on your use, but however, if you need a waterproof unit, select one that's not only rated as waterproof, but actually it looks like it's waterproof. In a perfect world, all equipment ratings would be issued under a single universally accepted standard, one that allows quick, easy comparisons, utilizing categories everybody can understand and interpret. Until that happy day, a little research and comparison shopping is a buyer's best defense against getting soaked when purchasing that new piece of gear.